When you think of Volkswagen, you probably think of Jettas, or Golfs, or maybe even the punch buggy. Pew pew. But what you don't think of is huge power or extreme luxury. I mean, their name literally translates to the people's car. So why and how did they create one of the most bonkers, highly sophisticated, amazing sounding luxury engines of all time? Well, today we're gonna dive into that incredible engineering of one of the coolest, most bizarre engines ever built, the W12. It's like two engines in one. It's crazy. Let's go. The W12, the name itself already sounds pretty nasty. And everyone knows W is the nastiest letter out there, unless you put two P's next to each other, and that's PP. So to explain the W12, let's look at some other engines for a second. So you got your inline fours, you got your inline sixes, and they have all the cylinders in a line, one after the other. Then you got your Vs. Mainly in the V configuration, you have V6s, V8s, V10s, and V12s. And those engines have two lines or banks of cylinders in a V shape. So we got our inlines, we got our Vs, and there's some boxer engines too, but for the sake of this video, we can skip over those, which then brings us to the W. And I'm gonna show you a little magic trick. When you take two Vs and you slam them together, you get a W. Did I just blow your mind? I just blew my mind. Yeah, why is it double U? It should definitely be double V. Double V even sounds cooler than W. We're changing the alphabet. One letter at a time, let's go. And I didn't know this, but when the first W12 engines were designed and built, they were intended for use in planes. They were built by this British company called D. Napier and Son during the First World War. And the Napier Lion, as it was called, was a 24-liter W12 that produced 900 horsepower, making it the most powerful engine ever built up until that point. That is insane. That same engine also powered the Napier Campbell Bluebird to 174.88 miles per hour in 1927, a land speed record at the time. Now, these early engines had proven that the W12 configuration was capable of producing excellent torque and horsepower. So why was the Napier W12 the last notable W12 before Volkswagen built theirs 70 years later? Well, unsurprisingly, W12 engines are pretty complex. So complex that Volkswagen needed to make it more complex. Typical Volkswagen. In actuality, it was just too big. So if they were going to use it in a modern car, they had to figure out how to make the setup smaller. Fortunately, Volkswagen had already solved the problem of making V engines smaller, and that's with their VR design. That's right, we're talking VR6. You've probably heard of VR6 before. VR6 badges are on the backs of Golfs, Passats, Jettas, they're all up in the VW lineup. So you might have seen the badge, but do you really know what it means? So let's talk about it. So the R in VR6 comes from the German word for inline, which is Reihenmotor. Nailed it. What up, my German buddies? So, what we call an I6, for example, the Germans call an R6. Of course, the 6 denotes that it's a 6-cylinder, hence the VR6. It's a V inline 6. But how can you have a V engine that's also an inline engine? It's either one or the other, right? Well, what the VW engineers wanted was to keep all of the benefits of a V6 in terms of performance, but package it in a way which would allow them to fit them in compact cars without having to compromise on their size and their weight and having to redesign a bunch of stuff in the engine bay. The question was, how do you house all that V6 technology in a smaller space? And the solution was simple. You have a Papa V make love to an inline mama, and they have a baby, a V Reihenmotor baby. By making the angle between the two banks of cylinders incredibly acute, that's this, that's, okay, you got 90, you got acute, and you got obtuse. I actually missed my 6th grade Miss Walker geometry class, and it took me years to remember that. I actually had to look this up because I still can't remember what acute and obtuse is. So just 15 degrees and staggering the cylinders so that they were snug up against one another, the engine could have a dimension similar to that of an inline four. Aside from size, what's the benefit of having a narrow-angled staggered VR6 layout? Well, only one cylinder head is needed for both banks of cylinders, which means only 2 total camshafts are needed. See, in a dual overhead cam 60-degree setup, which is kind of standard angle for a V6, you need 4 camshafts, 2 in each bank, like the Nissan 300ZX, for example. It's a quad cam. And regardless if the engineers fitted 2 or 4 valves per cylinder, a VR6 needed only 2 cams. This helped keep the cost down and probably more importantly, the size and weight of the engine compared to a regular old V6. There's a couple of other cool things inside the VR6 that allow for it to be smooth, vibrationless power producing. You guys know that's kind of a custom with the VR6, but we're not gonna get into that. That's for another day. Now the VR6 is only slightly longer and wider than a 4-cylinder engine, and yet it produces considerably more power with just 2 extra cylinders. This all meant that it could be mounted transversely. That's this way, side to side. And they could do that in a small front-wheel drive cars without having to be redesigned to allow for a larger engine bay. Now, one of the compromises of the VR6 compact design is in the head. Now, since the cylinders aren't mounted centrally against the cylinder head, this means that the distance to the valves in every other cylinder bank would be different. And if Volkswagen didn't do anything to compensate for this, it would have meant that each cylinder would have been producing vastly different horsepower compared to one another. So the engineers had to be clever in how they arranged the valves in order to feed the intake and draw the exhaust gases away. This meant that each cylinder had to have different length intakes. Pretty cool. The way Volkswagen accounted for that was to compensate for the cylinders which had longer intakes by increasing the length of the runners to the manifold, as well as the cam profile and the lift of those particular cylinders. I mean, that's pretty neat. There are no weak links in a VR6 motor. One cylinder is all line like, hey, 6, bro, why don't you pull your weight? Cylinder 6 is like, shut up, Volkswagen made me this way. Although he would probably have a German accent. He wouldn't sound like Joe Exotic. The VR6 made its debut in the Passat, but it's probably best known as the engine found in the Corrado. From there, it was fitted into other compact Volkswagens, including the Jetta and the GTI and a bunch of others. But more importantly, it's got a reputation for its super smooth power delivery and its sweet, sweet sound. Just go ahead and take a listen. So how do we go from a VR6 to a W12? Well, way back in the olden times, the 90s, Volkswagen chief Ferdinand Piëch had a little pet project. He wanted a car to battle sales from the top of the food chain Mercedes S-Class. The only problem, Volkswagen didn't have the right engine for the job. So, what did they do? Hold on, don't get ahead of yourself. Let me say it. I want to be the one to say it. I'm talking here, okay? Yep, they essentially just put 2 VR6s together. Enter the WR12 48 valve. It had 4 rows of 3 cylinders. So yeah, essentially 2 15-degree VR engines married in a W formation, which is what makes the W shape. And they kept the stroke the same as the VR6. That's this part. Boom, boom, boom. But each cylinder was bored out slightly from 81 millimeters to 84 millimeters. And this allowed a tiny bit more air into each cylinder, which meant a little bit bigger boom. And of course, more power. That extra bit of bore diameter gave the engine a displacement of 6 liters. And the cylinder block was cast from an aluminum silicon alloy, which would allow for greater torsional rigidity, but also, more importantly, greater heat dispersion than one made from steel. Because you got those 2 banks of 6 cylinders packed in so tightly, you got to be able to remove the heat from the block, which was a critical engineering challenge. Plus, this aluminum silicon alloy also made the block far lighter than it would have been if it were made out of steel. Steel weighs more than aluminum silicon. Duh, you guys get it. And each of the 2 cylinder banks has its own air filter and throttle body. The intake manifolds, they're even made out of magnesium alloy. Volkswagen really wanted to keep as much of the weight in the base of the engine, hence the use of magnesium and aluminum at the engine's top side. Okay, you're like, Jeremiah, cool, whatever, but what are the numbers? All right, geez, chill. We're getting there, okay? I have a degree in mechanical engineering that I'm doing nothing with, so I like to nerd out a little bit. Just join me. So, the naturally aspirated Volkswagen WR12 produces 400 244 horsepower. That might not sound like a ton, but this was also in the ancient year of the 1990s. And here's the real kicker with it. It made 413 foot-pounds of torque from 2750 to 5,000 RPM. That is a wide range to have that much torque. And really, that's a big part with a 12-cylinder design in the first place. Smooth, consistent torque across the power band. Pretty damn freaking wild, right? It's a wild engine. So to showcase this thing, Volkswagen plopped a special 600 horsepower version in a concept car they literally just called the W12. You want another eargasm? Well, close the door, put on some headphones, and tell your mom you're taking a nap, because you're gonna need some alone time. Just listen to this. This car smashed a bunch of records in 2002 where they were ripping around the Nardo ring in Italy for 24 hours straight with an average speed of 200.6 miles per hour. That is so crazy. Now, obviously you don't see these W12 cars driving around, the concept ones, but you do see WR12s driving around. A Volkswagen dropped this engine in versions of the Audi A8, which Volkswagen owns, they own Audi, you know that, and the Volkswagen Phaeton, the giant looking Passat thing, which is a car so weird we should probably give it an episode at some point. That thing is completely wild. Plus the W12 Touareg. I love that these fairly standard looking cars have W12s in them. If you didn't know what you were looking for, there's no way you would know a W12 would be in some of those cars. It's just pretty insane. There are now twin turbo versions of the W12 powering the Bentley Continental GT and the Bentley Flying Spur. And the same basic engine principles and layout are what's used in Bugatti's W16 engine and the Veyron, the Chiron, the Devo, and the Centodici, and the Pasta Fagioli. I freaking love Olive Garden. If this was your first car video or your 1000th, welcome. We do this thing every single day. We got new car content. We're always trying to be funny and informative. We even have a subreddit, a Facebook group. There's always something going on with the Donut Fam. We are a whole community, so if you want to be a part of it, hit that subscribe button, join us, and hopefully we'll see you here tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.